Friedman will be here at 10 to 8 with all of the details. Stay tuned.
But coming up first this week on Information Radio, we've been exploring the idea of dying well. Today, the story of a man who's grappling with that question right now, and he's determined to bring on his own death. The CBC's Leslie McLaren has his story. Morning, Leslie.
Morning, Terry.
So you found people who are right now dying who agreed to talk to you?
Yeah, I did. And I have to say it is a very humbling experience, and I'm really not sure I'd have that much grace and patience. So I want to tell you about Nagui Morcos. And yes, we have been talking about how do we die and what does it mean to die well. And when I spoke to this 53-year-old Toronto man about that, he turned that question right on its side.
For me, it's not that at all. That is not the question. The question is living versus dying. And for me, living is the worst nightmare, and that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Nagui has Huntington's disease. It kills off parts of the brain and leads to incapacitation and eventually death. He says he's known about it for years. He tested positive for it back when he and his wife were first trying to have a baby, and now it's getting worse.
I'm watching day to day the wheels falling off the bus.
Nagui says he's having trouble controlling his arms and legs. He has trouble speaking sometimes, so involuntary movements are something that he's dealing with. He says he knows what's coming because his father died of the disease, and now he sees it reflected in other people's eyes.
People, gasping, and they can see something's not right here, so they're not sure what's going on. I get it, and that's why that's part of my decision to hasten my end of life here.
He's planning to hasten the end of his life.
That's right. Going back to that clip we played off the top, for him, knowing what's ahead and living through that is worth than any death he says he can imagine. The disease robbed his father of his personality. His father became insanely jealous, and that drove his wife away. He and his brothers ended up caring for his dad, who was bedridden. Nagui said he had to be spoon-fed. He says he and his brothers, quote, played God when his father almost died and the doctors asked should they resuscitate him. The brothers at that time said yes, but the second time their father faltered badly. They thought about it again and they decided to let him go. They didn't want to put him through that, he said. Nagui says his decision to take his own life now is partly to protect his own family.
I don't want to have anybody have to make any of those choices for me because it's horrific.
Leslie, how's he going to do it? Does he know?
He has actually worried, and he says fretted about the how part for the last 15 years because he knew way back when that he was going to kill himself somehow. Then last year he found an organization called Dying with Dignity. He says it was a huge relief, and they helped him understand what his options were, in fact, that he had options. They suggested he could stop eating and or drinking, that he could inhale certain kinds of gas or take a pill. And Nagui says for him, he's chosen the third option, to take some kind of a pill that is fatal. And I asked him about that.
I know where to get it from. I order it online.
Okay. And you know exactly what to order?
Yes.
And would you tell me what it is?
No.
What Nagui will talk about is how the law should be changed in Canada to allow physician-assisted suicide. He points to other jurisdictions like Oregon, which he says is more humane.
And unfortunately, it's not the case here in Canada. Unless, of course, you're a dog or a cat.
How does his family feel about his decision?
His two brothers support him completely, having seen their father go through it. His wife, too, would have been interesting to talk to her. At first, there was a point where he said her biggest fear was that he would do something like jump off a bridge or in front of a subway train, and she'd find out from the police knocking on the door. But they had a big talk about it, and she told him she wants to be a part of his plan and be with him all the way. And he says right now they are, in fact, mourning each other.
It's hard, but this is the part of that what we are doing is letting go, and that's what people have to do eventually. Of course, they don't want to let them go, and so that's why this whole area is is just taboo, and people don't want to talk about it because they think, well, I can't support this. That's the whole idea. That's the reason I'm here. Hopefully, people will hear the other side of someone who's terminally ill, living with it day to day. It's not pretty.
How and when does he plan to do this?
It'll be within the next couple of years.
Now, this is really, it's a painful story, especially, I mean, you can hear in his voice that he's an intelligent, vital person. I mean, he was very coherent in the conversation.
Yes, he's very passionate.
Leslie, thanks so much.
All right, Terry.
And that is the story of a man that Leslie found, Nagui Morcos, who's waiting to bring about his own death. And coming up after the 7:30 news, when someone you know is living in agony and their only escape is dying, should you be allowed to help them? We'll hear why advocates say it's high time to legalize assisted suicide. That story after the 7:30 news.
Canada.